Guys, what's going on? It's time for ELOs Explain. That's right. The thing that you've all been waiting for, ELOs Explain. But first, shirt hype. Shirt hype. We got NEACE shirts now from Teespring. I'm going to leave a link in the description. This is my first official promotion of the shirts. They look great. I actually got mine, my sample a little too big. I'm a medium. I promise, you have my word. These things are bomb. They're worth your money. You'll be very happy with the result on those. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say about it. I'll leave a link in the description. Shouts out to Teespring with all the help on that. Let's get started with climbing from the jungle. We're going to be going through each ELO, talking a little bit about my thoughts on jungle, best ways to carry, things you need to work on and improve on. Enjoy. So the first thing, jungle overview. A lot of junglers are going to be mad, downvote the video right away, dislike the video right away. Jungle is the strongest role, and it has been for a long time. Now, there's obviously times where it's dipped in impact, but ultimately the jungle is the big deciding role. Take a look at Worlds. Take a look at the big stars of Worlds, and it's often going to be the junglers. Most of the other roles were just kind of there coexisting. Jungles and top laners were mostly the big ones in the last Worlds. Most important role, if played wrong, it really hurts the team. Best role to carry if you're ahead. And if you want to play jungle, play it. If you like outsmarting opponents, if you like speed running more than laning, if you want to have more agency in games, but you shouldn't be playing jungle if you can't handle being blamed. Junglers get blamed a lot, even if it's wrong. You're gonna get blamed all the time. So if you can't handle it, then you probably shouldn't be jungling. You lack map awareness, you're gonna be in for a rude awakening, because yes, while you do have to speed run, you have to know when to leave the train track, as I call it, and to actually impact lanes. And then lastly, if you're addicted to fighting champions, you're gonna be spending most of your time farming and thinking about getting back into farming. So yes, concepts that we need to learn. Efficient clearing. I call it the train track. So every time that you path, you think, I'm going to path from point A to point B to point C to point D and then look for a gank. The classic example is if you go golems, chickens, wolves, gromp, gank. Or look for a gank, look for an invade, look to back, whatever. When you finish that play, guess what's coming back up next? The golems, and you do the same path again, and that is mostly how you're going to structure your jungling. Obviously, there's exceptions to these rules depending on depending on the champion that you select, but that's the key. The key is the train track. Always remember that you're on a train, you're looking out the window, you're only stopping the train in case of an emergency, but you are a train and you're going to get to your destinations as fast and as efficiently as possible. As you're clearing, you need to be constantly watching the laners, layering. When you do decide to show up to gank, you need to think about, hey, what's this champion going to do when he sees me? Is he going to throw a skill shot? Is he going to flash? How's he going to play this? Then you got to learn, what are you going to do after a gank? Whether it's successful, whether it isn't, what are you going to do after that? Are you going to go right back to farming? Most of the time, that's the answer. Or are you going to push the lanes? You got to learn those things in order to be entry level. You got to get those down. Now, to get towards the middle tier, to get above iron, bronze, and silver, you got to learn map control. You got to learn when objectives are coming up. You got to be paying attention to that. You got to be kind of helping your support get down vision. You got to be thinking about counter jungling. What if your opponent invades you? What if your opponent ganks top early with just a blue buff? Are you going to get any value out of that? Or are you just going to do your clear autopilot and not think about what's happening? That's normally the difference between somebody's in low elo and somebody's playing in like gold, platinum, diamond, which is like kind of low elo. You know what I mean? And then you've got counter ganking. Hey, I know this enemy jungler. I know that this Mundo is always going to full clear. At 6, I know he's going to go top because he's level 6. Maybe I can counter gank that. Maybe I'm facing a Jarvan. Jarvan's love to 3 camp and gank early. Maybe I can counter gank that. Should be thinking about the game at a deeper level. Rotations based on objectives. So instead of just pathing away from the objective all the time, think about, maybe I should rotate my pathing and start pathing down towards that dragon so I can be there when it's up, or change the way that my trajectory so that I can contest these objectives. And lastly, for the higher ELOS improvements, you've got tracking the enemy jungler, which is oftentimes pretty difficult for most players. Junglers, oftentimes they just kind of turn their brain off and they don't think about where the other jungler is. But if you know where the enemy jungler is, you can get a ton of value, either by predicting where they're going to gank, which gives back into the counter ganking, but also you could invade junglers, you can duel them in river. You can outsmart them by baiting them into a play they would otherwise not be doing if you were just being predictable and obvious, right? You need to predict the enemy map movement. I know that sounds kind of similar, but the idea here is you've got to think about the flow of the game. If a jungler is diving top and you're just farming, maybe across map, you could think to dive bottom or invade bottom or do something. You have to play off that tempo of the opposite side of the map, and you have to think, man, how can I get value out of what their jungler is investing on that top side right now? The game is all about making sure that when you see an opportunity, you have to get in there and actually take advantage of it. And that's where that confidence and that decision-making comes in. A lot of the problem with junglers, I find, is just decision paralysis. Like, they have no idea what they're going to do because they've got like 5 or 6 options. So, for example, if you go, golems, chickens, wolves, gromp, you've got a lot of options. You could back, you could gank through the lane, you could gank through a brush, you could take scuttle, you could invade, you could go to mid, you could lane gank through mid, you could flank through mid. You've got all these options. So for a lot of people, there's decision paralysis. So being able to kind of thin out that brain fog will get you down this list and get you understanding, like, all right, let's keep it simple, have a plan, stick to it. And then lastly, late game big decisions. Hey, do I need to go for this Baron, or do I need to try to contest and steal this Baron, or is that going to lose me the game? Or should I instead maybe push mid out? Or maybe I should go for a big pick here since I'm fed on Kha'Zix instead of just letting the game kind of slow burn out. Those late game big decisions, being able to make those and execute those when you need to is a big part of like really crushing in the jungle. Okay, so now that I've got you the general concepts of jungling, the general ideas that you need to think about. Oh, and also just a little tip before we get into the next thing. You should definitely consider how fast are we getting to our red smite or our blue smite. Make sure you're dropping those smites ASAP in this new season 11 meta. Let's talk. If you're an iron, likely errors that are keeping you an iron. So you've probably got system performance errors. That's a common one. People are playing on low, super crappy settings with ATMs and calculators. How are you an iron? I talk about this all the time in the videos with the Escape Your ELO. How are you an iron? Are you looking at videos? Are you just doing whatever? Are you thinking about what you're doing? Or are you just playing to play? And the other thing that I would really ask you is, are you even playing that much? A lot of people will play like 10 games, be an iron, and they don't really put any time in. They say, well, I'm an iron. Ranked anxiety is real. You got to put volume in. You got to fail. I failed 10,000 times more than you. Do you know the basics? This goes back to, there's so much content out there. I mean, my coachings, I've put out over 100 coachings on YouTube in the past 4 months. You've got treasure troves of content. People pay a lot of money to get coached by me now. You can just watch some of that stuff and get some good ideas just to get started if you're, if you don't have the money, if you don't have the time to get coached by me or whatever. I've got recommended champion pools. I recommend Mundo. I just said I've got a bunch of videos now for all sorts of stuff. I did a bunch of coaching on Mundo explaining pathing to get people in the flow of how jungling works. Use those and emulate, practice your clears. And stick on the Mundo, dude. He's a good champion. He's going to get buffed soon after I release this video. And he's just a real good entry-level champion for the jungle. So what are we going to improve? We need to spam the tutorial. We need to spam the bot games. We need to get our time in the ranked. After that, we need to learn champions, like the basics. How do I clear? Can I get into the practice tool and do that? And then play to learn the fundamentals, watch the coachings, all that stuff that we talked about. It's too easy, man. It's too easy. You guys, you shouldn't have any problems, especially after watching the content. It should make life a lot easier for you. Bronze, similar things. Are you playing enough ranked games yet? Are you working hard to improve? And then for recommended champs, we've still got the Mundo in there, but I've added in Olaf, Hecarim, and Fiddlesticks. Different types of junglers. Fiddlesticks is more of a jungler that'll teach you to just kind of farm until 6, make a good engage, farm some more, make a good engage. Very simple. But Hecarim and Mundo and Olaf are all just kind of stat check champs. If we farmed well, we farmed efficiently, we'll come out of the jungle, we'll be stronger than the laners. Here's the key with jungling too, guys. And this is something that I don't talk a lot about. All those lanes, the thing about laning and jungling, and the reason why this pathing stuff is harped on so hard in my videos, is because when you're in lane, the only way that you can miss your farm and XP is if you stand too far away from the minions. With jungling, you could just miss XP and gold because you don't have the the fastest possible clear, and then you can so easily get distracted by fighting, by ganking, that you're not getting your gold income. So that's why I go in on this as hard as I do in these videos, is because people just don't take it seriously enough. If I play Tryndamere, I am guaranteed, if I'm sitting in lane, I am guaranteed to get about 120 farm at 13 minutes standard. If I miss a bit here or there, that's about what I'm going to get every time. I'm going to get a crazy farm, especially if I'm ahead, right? Maybe even more. With jungling, your farm will be all over the place. And the reason why most players' farm is low and all over the place is because they're not pathing. But here's the bonus, and this is why jungle's so OP. You can't really miss the last hit if you're jungling. I mean, you can, but it's really tough. So as long as you're pathing fast and you're pathing with these bruiser champs that I'm recommending here, you guys should have no excuse for being in low elo if you're putting in the work. No excuse whatsoever. That's why it's so important to really focus on that. All right, so focus on clearing efficiently and healthy. Pay attention to the map, even though I'm not really expecting you to gank too much, right? Gank only off of full clears. And don't theory craft. Copy better players, and you'll have no problem escaping. Remember, you need to play 100 games per season, all right, to get an accurate rank representation. A lot of people get coaching from me, and they've only played like 30 games. And I'm like, you got to play more games. You have to, or you're not going to, we're never even really going to know where you're at. You got to be willing to fail. Silver, the major errors that I see: a ton of wasted time, running around for no reason. The inefficiencies are still happening, right? People are still leveling up with their mouse instead of doing it by the keyboard. The map awareness, lock screen, get rid of the lock screen, right? Drop the lock screen ASAP, right? That's what I'm going to yell at you inevitably for coaching anyways. Drop it. Stop using it. Stop saying, oh, it's just more comfortable for me. I'm 32 years old. Even if I'm 50, I'm going to still play without a lock screen. This is not that hard. You've just got to practice. Stop kidding yourself. It's the equivalent of someone who swims and never breathes off of their shoulder. You know those weirdos at the pool that I'm talking about? This shit? Yeah. So you need to play off of that lock screen. Recommended 2 to 3 champion. Now we've got our Hecarim, our Olaf, our Mundo. Really, there's all sorts of options that are going to come through here down the pipeline. Seriously, think about the bruiser champs. Think about the beefier champs. Those are the ones that we're looking for the most. Anything else is just, if you're trying to play assassins, I think that's great. But I think you're handicapping yourself in solo queue, because assassins, while they do one-shot things and you can feel really good about yourself when you kill people, the downside here is, of course, that you're not going to be able to split push really. You're not going to be able to hit towers really. You're not going to be able to dive people or to set up and engage really. I would discourage it. I got Mundo over there as the example, obviously, but seriously, anything that you can get farmed up and get big and take up space is so important, so much more important in my opinion. Stop getting distracted while you're pathing. That's one thing that we can improve on. Stop wasting time. Think about what's happening, what's coming up, who has prio, who's fed, who isn't. Your decisions are going to be terrible. That's okay. But as long as you're thinking about those decisions, you're working your way up, it's going to get a lot easier for you. Now let's move on to gold. Gold, major errors in gold junglers. How is our clear? Could I beat you in 15 minutes of practice right now with your jungle main? If you're let's say fiddle. Let's say if you're a fiddle main. I don't play fiddle. Could I jump in the practice tool right now as NEACE and beat you in 15 minutes of practice? If you think I could, that means you need to get your butt in the practice tool and keep working on your clear speed. Because I'm telling you right now, a lot of people get coaching from me and they say, oh, I play XYZ. And I go, is this really the fastest clear you could do? And in 15 minutes of private coaching, I improve their clear right away and get them rocking. You need to stop forcing random plays, especially after your full clear. You force on scuttle. People are getting a little smarter. They start to contest the scuttles more. You need to start thinking more about the prio. Hey, am I about to just run into an Olaf after finishing my blue buff and he's going to be level 4? Is he just going to run me over? If so, let's swap to the opposite scuttle. You know, am I just ganking lanes that don't make any sense? Am I just autopiloting, thinking I'm going to win every scenario? Because now your opponents are starting to get the mechanics right. Even the people in lane know how to turn a gank sometimes. And I'm bringing in the recommendations. We've got Olaf, Hecarim, Udyr, Kha'Zix, Vi, Echo, Rek'Sai, and Fiddle. Now, like I said, with these assassins like the Kha'Zix and the Echo, Kha'Zix just overtuned right now. Riot loves him. This obviously changed by the time I released this video. A bit of an assassin, but one that goes full invis. That's very, very valuable. You can take up a lot of space with that. And Echo is another one that I would consider to be an assassin, but he has his R reset, which basically allows him to get out of the fight. So he could even set up a dive as an assassin and then get out. A lot of value there, as well as obviously the stuff that I recommend. Udyr, one of my staples. Yeah, so how do we improve? How do we get out of gold? Early game skirmishing. Yeah, early game skirmishing has to be tight. You got to think about whose champion beats who early game and avoid those fights like the plague so your games aren't just a mess, right? Like, if you're dying early all the time, you're losing your impact because you're not able to farm as fast. If you just farmed instead of taking a weird fight in the first place, you'd have more agency. Jungle matchups and diving. Start looking to dive people, especially when you get ahead. I see people get ahead all the time in my coach when I coach gold players. And then I go to try to get them to dive. I'm like, really? I could dive that? Yes, you probably can if you're ahead. If someone's lower level than you, start trying to put the game away by being aggressive. Objective and map control, especially mid to late game. Oh, I got ahead, NEACE. I don't know what I can do to carry these games. Well, maybe what you need to start doing is buy a pink ward, think about what objective's coming up, path that way, and then head there. Then mid to late game, start thinking, oh, I'm fed. Maybe I should dial in the full clears a little bit and get out on the map more. Advanced layering, keep improving that. Think about the fights as they're happening. Think about what ability is about to come out when I gank these guys. You guys should start getting a lot better at dodging skill shots. Start improving on that, getting your hands dirty. All that stuff will really help. If you're in Platinum, major errors in Platinum. Mechanics and rank start to become ego, right? The mechanics, I always say this on every video that I do. Platinum players' mechanics are pretty dang good, especially on like EU West. But it doesn't matter how many kills they get. It doesn't matter how ahead they are. Come mid-game, the throws are going to start happening. And then as the game goes on, 20, 25 minutes, that game knowledge just starts to plummet hard. No concept of the bigger picture. Recommended champ pool keeps going up. We throw Nunu in there, throw Graves in there. You got Karthus, Evelyn, all sorts of fun stuff in there. If you want to DVA, I dropped the Mundo at this point, but again, Mundo is getting buffed soon. Those Bruiser champs are still pretty good. You can consider those. Like if you're one trick or playing some sort of champ, like I'm spamming a lot of Udyr right now. I play him in higher elo as I'm climbing. Really just think about your pool and think about the tier list too. Any of these champions get nerfed from my recommendations. Maybe they're not as viable by the time you see this. Just pay attention. Think about your champion and what it can bring to the table. Don't play some off meta stuff in the jungle and don't play stuff with slow clears. You want to improve? Great. Drop the ego. You suck. Pretty much anybody can make platinum once they get decent mechanics. It isn't that great. You know, a lot of the platinum players, they do play a lot. That's just the reality. They don't have trouble with ranked anxiety, but it's the opposite, right? It's the people that just play and play and play and play, and they think they've gotten as good as they need to, and they don't want to improve on the little things. You need to counter jungle and invade at the right times. If you see someone in your side of the map trying to take your jungle, you need to get out there and invade right away, or think about how you can leverage that right away to do something aggressive. Now you're going to be punished more if you're not thinking the right way in jungling. You're not doing vertical jungle where, you know, instead of doing a normal clear, vertical jungling is when you see someone cross into your jungle, so you got to cross into theirs and do something similar. Of course, this might get you in trouble sometimes, but you're going to learn about the skirmishing and the counter jungling and all that stuff. You need to identify your own common mistakes. So, for example, are you wasting ults every time you gank when the gank is secured? Are you wasting sums every time that you gank when the gank is clearly secured? Think about that and fix them in the VODs. And then you need to identify your win conditions more and play around them. You're not going to be able to just manhandle every game. Even I can't do that in Platinum, right? You got to find win conditions. If someone's kicking ass in top lane, you've got a 5-0 Fiora, go up there and dive the top lane, get the tower down, and get the game rolling. Don't just wait for the game to come to you. Whoo, the big ego. The big old ego. If you're in Diamond and you're trying to improve, the first thing I'm going to tell you right now, if you're trying to get beyond Diamond, I always tell people, you've pretty much beaten League if you're playing Diamond, right? If we're going beyond Diamond, we're really nitpicking ourselves. And as a result, don't just shrug your shoulders when you're making the same mistakes that you've made for the past like 4 or 5 years. You guys that are in Diamond that are stuck there, you know exactly what I'm talking to. Don't just shrug your shoulders and say, oh, it doesn't matter anyways. I'll make a little mistake here. Yes, it does. Yes, it does, because you're trying to get to hard elo, Masters Plus. That is the true high elo. Diamond 2 and up, in my opinion. I always view it as high elo. You've got to make those little adjustments and be consistent in your decision making to make sure that you're paying attention to every facet of the game, not leaking deaths. Don't rage when things get too bad. You can be mad, but don't just give up, right? Sometimes these players in Diamond, they get really good at the champion. They do the same clear path every time, super fast, and then they don't adapt, so they face someone smarter than them, and then they get PP slapped, right? Poor objective river control, as in losing that skirmish because they just get outplayed, or they take a fight that they know better, even though they had prio. They're not thinking enough about whether or not that fight actually goes their way. Sounds obvious, sounds kind of similar to the lower elos, but the difference here, of course, is that these skirmishes are big, they're vast. There's normally a 3-on-3 skirmish for scuttles. Lanes are rotating. Are you even aware that they were going to rotate? If you're not, you're just as bad as the rest of people in Diamond. Recommended champ pool, we got a big list here. Stick to the meta. That's basically the summary of the champ pool. 1 to 3, stick to the meta. Notice I pretty much recommended a low amount of champions regardless. I think that's just the standard. You don't need a ton in the jungle. You just need good picks to generally cover every situation. Give you an example. I personally play Udyr, Hecarim, and Karthus. There you go. I got 3 champions for different types of situations. You know, I can mix in some other stuff occasionally, but those are my big 3. Yeah, so how do we get out of Diamond? What do we need to improve? Mental strength. You got to keep that focus. You got to make sure you're not autopiloting. You're going to have to play a ton, and you're going to have to expect to lose a ton. Even if you're me, you'd have to lose. That's just what it is. It's Diamond. You need to watch VODs. You need to think about your mistakes and actively analyze the game. One common thing, especially my NA compadres, they lose a game, they go right into the next game. They don't load up a VOD. I mean, at the very least, load the VOD up while you're waiting in queue. It's a fun little trick that you can do. As you're right before you click queue up, you can load the game, start it, alt tab, and then queue up. Bam. You can study your game, study your pathing. If you want to get really advanced, you could actually do a second instance and practice your clear in those long queues. Jungle's OP, especially for that little tip. That's what I'm going to be doing this season. You got to think about that late game macro. Should I really go for this Baron right now? When if we just survive it, maybe we'll have a good chance to go. Or do I need to steal this Baron? Do I need to go for it? Is it not an option? Like, I have to go for it. These late game decision making will add up. Maybe your itemization is whack. Maybe you're itemizing the wrong way for your composition. I know for the example of Udyr specifically, that's what I'm playing is like, you can go AP, you can go AD, you can do tank, you can do off tank, you can do phase rush, you can do conqueror. You've got all these different options, and sometimes I'll lose because I'm still learning some of the stuff, and I'll be like, maybe I should have itemized a little differently. Masters Plus. You got to start dodging. You got to recognize bad players. You got to use your data mining. Riot won't patch it. Thankfully, you don't have to worry about dueling now, which is nice. But yeah, you're still going to have to dodge. You're going to have to take your champ select seriously. If you're not a streamer, you don't really have an excuse. I mean, for me, when I'm streaming, if I ever play past Diamond on stream, I feel like I just kind of have to play because I don't want to wait all day. And for me, I'm coaching a lot, so I don't really have time to sit there. But you guys that dream of being a streamer, dream of being a pro player, dream of being whatever, this slide's for you. I know there's not that many of you, maybe a handful. You got to realize that, like, you're facing people like me, like you, that are really dedicated to the game. And so you've got to get every little edge until Riot patches it. The worst type of mentality, you can look up the scrub mentality. That's a thing on Google. You type that in. I mean, I bitch about it, but if I was really trying to get to like challenger as soon as possible, I would be dodging and I probably wouldn't be streaming it. Or if I was streaming it, I'd probably hide my mini map. Do you see where I'm going with this? You can't beat them, join them. It's on Riot. It's Riot's job. You got to play around your win cons. If you get a guy who's an 80% win rate smurf and you're pathing away from that guy in master tier, you're fucking trolling. This is not a game. The people that are 50% win rate players, you can't necessarily trust them to control the outcome of the game. If you got someone that's crushing a lane, you need to play towards them because the momentum is real. And you need to think about effectively using that lead to close the games as fast as possible. Don't dick around. Don't showboat. Don't be arrogant. The people that you're facing will take a mistake and they will turn it on you like that. So, recommended champ pool, same thing. Early game champs, play the tier list. Think about the early game champs hard. I didn't include much, you know, this meta could obviously change, but those are the champions right now that are super strong, at least by my read. There's other things in there too, but really got to think about those strong, early game, reliable champs. Even Kha'Zix, while he's not early game, he's just super viable in high elo right now. Focus on improve. Understand the game is often decided in the first 3 to 5 minutes, so take it seriously. Don't dick around. Use dodging to your advantage, which you talked about. Consistency. Don't tilt. If you've lost a bunch, don't tilt Q. If you got a guy in your lobby who is trash, you need to just take a break because you're going to get him again. This is 100% fact, especially on NA, small server, dead region. You got to make sure that you just take a break because you're going to get that guy again. He's going to troll you. You might even have to wait 10, 15 minutes to make sure he's in a game. You might have to op.gg stock to make sure he's in a game. Grandmaster, if you're trying to escape Grandmaster and get the Challenger, here it is. You didn't buy Tarzan boosting like Dom did. You got scammed by some win traders. You didn't wait long enough for Q. Recommended champ pool. I put Olaf, but honestly, Ivern. There. Shouts out to T1. Tyler 1 hype. Focus on approved dodge, even if you waited 20 minutes to get into a bad lobby. Make friends. Remember the good players. And then, yeah, use my coachings while in queue. There you go. Done so. It's done. Damn, this took a little while to make. Sorry about that. Seriously, I gotta promote my shirts again. Shouts out. Follow me, Twitter, YouTube, sub, whatever. Just do what you can to support when you can. You guys know me. You know how much I pour my heart and soul into this stuff. I coach 5 times a day standard right now. I don't even take breaks during the weekend. So this is for you. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this, if it was helpful at all. But yeah, thank you again, guys. This has been an amazing time. The growth on the channel has been insane. And I want to know, or I want to see how you guys do after this. And if I get another coaching client, private coaching, leveling up by the mouse, I don't know what I'm going to do. Especially if they're a jungler. All right, I got to go. Peace. Love you guys. See you soon. Thank you so much. Later, guys. Bye.